are inhumane based on the reporting of one person with a political bias. What I'm telling you is that it's inhumane to allow cartels to sex traffic people across our border. And by the way,
please hold on.
I appreciate that. We're going to get you back, Anna.
We're coming back with more with the vice president.
Wait, did you just catch that? JD Vance just walked right into the lion's den on The View, and things went completely off the rails. Whoopi Goldberg literally had to step in and shut down her own co-host. Let's break down exactly how he dismantled their entire trap.
Here's what I'd say. Do we know that during the last administration, we had tens of thousands of children who were sex trafficked by the cartels, who were brought into our country in profoundly dangerous and predatory conditions?
Let's talk about this administration.
But here's the point. Unless you enforce the border, you invite that kind of conduct. You think that our immigration policies...
Okay, look closely at the strategy being played out right there. Anna Navarro tries to set up a classic emotional trap, framing the border debate entirely around a single, highly biased narrative. But notice how Vance doesn't even flinch. He completely flips the script by leaning directly into the reality of cartels and human trafficking. This is advanced debate tactics right here. When you're cornered by raw emotion, you don't fight back with just anger. You drop an undeniable, heavy reality check that shatters the premise of their question. He anchors his argument on the undeniable human cost of an open border. You can practically feel the tension radiating off the desk because the panelists weren't ready for him to pivot the moral high ground right back onto them. Navarro realizes her trap just snapped shut on her own argument, which is exactly why she starts scrambling. It gets so heated that the production team clearly realized they were losing control of the segment, forcing Whoopi to play referee before it turned into a total disaster for their side.
Well, what exactly are you talking about, Whoopi? Because you just, I know Emmett Till was the kid. No, I want to know what she's.
You don't know what I'm talking about.
Your actual point.
So in a lot of the museums, there's so many. Where they're taking down the actual history that happened in this country. Slavery happened. All kinds of stuff happened. And it seems that it has been very easy for this administration to remove that and also to denigrate Black folks who have worked their behinds off to get this American dream. How do you,
Did you notice the exact moment Whoopi realizes she's backed into a corner? This is a masterclass in why you never throw out sweeping generalizations without having the receipts to back them up. Vance casually leans in and just asks for one single concrete example. That's it, just one. And you can visibly see the panic set in. She immediately starts doing that verbal backpedal, throwing out vague buzzwords about museums and history, but completely failing to name a single actual policy or event. This happens all the time when people get entirely consumed by political echo chambers. They know exactly how they are supposed to feel, but they completely forget to memorize the actual facts that justify those feelings. Vance didn't even have to raise his voice or get aggressive. He just sat there, stayed completely calm, and let the sheer silence and her stammering do all the heavy lifting. By just asking, "What exactly are you talking about?" he totally exposed that the entire line of questioning was running on pure emotion instead of actual substance.
First of all, you asked the question, and maybe you don't believe this coming from me, but I think everybody is welcome in our political coalition. Frankly, even if you didn't vote for us, everybody is welcome in our country so long as you're an American citizen with the duties and the legal obligations and rights to be here. But let me just give you an example of this. Okay, so you say that we're anti-minority or anti-Black.
No, I didn't say that. I asked. See?
Well, okay, fine. Fair.
Don't start any stuff with me, man. Don't get me in trouble. Don't start no stuff with me. But
I misinterpreted your question, but let me answer your actual question there. What I'm saying, I think, okay, look at Washington, D.C. one of the most democratic and one of the blackest, by share of population, blackest cities in the United States of America, has seen a radical decrease in violent crimes and sexual assaults and in murders. We have tried to take the crime issue seriously, in part because we believe everybody, whether you're black or white or rich or poor, deserves to live in a safe.
You've got to appreciate the subtle social dynamics at play here. The "don't start any stuff with me" joke is actually a brilliant psychological reset. Things were getting incredibly tense, and Vance uses that split second of humor to completely disarm Whoopi and take the temperature in the room down a notch. It's a classic tension breaker. But he doesn't just stop there. As soon as he gets the opening, he immediately pivots straight to hard, irrefutable data. He completely ignores the vague accusations about being anti-minority and instead points directly at Washington, D.C., a heavily Democratic city, and highlights the tangible drop in violent crime. He is reframing the entire conversation from abstract culture wars to actual physical safety in neighborhoods. It's brilliant because it forces the panel to argue against safe streets if they want to keep attacking him. He's telling them, we care about actual results, not just the perception of caring. That pivot right there is why he's sitting in that chair. He knows exactly how to bridge a hostile narrative back to common sense reality.
Lack of clean water, the lack of medical attention, the lack of education. I would urge you as a Christian and as a father to visit those detention centers where the children are being held and make sure that the conditions are up to the values that we hold in this country.
So you guys have thrown a lot at me, and I see we got 30 seconds left here. But let me say,
You're
number
the
one,
Vice President, you can go long.
I'd like to pick up on this theme because I think it's really important. We do have to strike a balance, of course, between enforcing our laws. We don't want to dehumanize people. That is the
This is exactly what happens when someone tries to weaponize a person's faith against them on national television. The panelist tries to pull the ultimate moral guilt trip, bringing up his role as a Christian and a father to corner him on detention centers. It's a highly calculated emotional strike, but catch how Vance absorbs the blow. He acknowledges the complexity, saying they don't want to dehumanize anyone, but he completely refuses to apologize for enforcing the law. He understands that the moment you concede the moral high ground on an issue like this, you've lost the entire debate. The reality is, every single policy has a trade-off. If you open the doors wide, the trade-off is an explosion in trafficking and cartel control. He's essentially forcing them to look in the mirror and acknowledge that their compassionate policies have massive, brutal consequences. It's a very harsh truth, and you can see how uncomfortable it makes the hosts to have their own moral logic turned upside down and handed right back to them.
Look, law enforcement, what I'd say about this, law enforcement is always inherently not a very pretty process, especially when you're dealing sometimes with violent people, with people who are resisting arrest. Some of the people that I've been told by the media were completely peaceful, had never violated any laws. You actually look into the record and you find out that those people were actually being violent, or they did have a criminal record. They had a sex trafficking conviction.
Listen closely to the distinction he's making here, because it completely unravels the standard mainstream media playbook. Vance is calling out the massive disconnect between the curated stories you see on the news and the ugly reality of actual law enforcement. The media loves to paint these situations as completely black and white, claiming individuals are entirely peaceful until the actual criminal records are pulled. It's incredibly rare to see a politician on a show like this directly challenge the false narratives the networks themselves often push. He is dismantling the peaceful narrative by dropping the reality of violent histories and trafficking convictions right on their desk. He is forcing the audience to realize that the people on the front lines are dealing with highly dangerous individuals, not the sanitized versions presented in the headlines. It's a heavy dose of reality that utterly destroys the panel's attempt to paint law enforcement as the bad guys. He held his ground perfectly, entirely refusing to play by their skewed set of rules.
What did black people do to this administration that has allowed it to really stigmatize folks of color? And you know how hard it is you have folks of color in your family.
Sure.
So when you see, things, the Emmett Till stuff coming down, or them doing all kinds of removal of information of Black heroes, how does that sit with you?
This right here is the definition of a loaded question. Whoopi isn't actually looking for an answer. She's trying to paint him into a corner with accusations about stigmatizing folks of color and erasing history. It's an aggressive, purely emotional tactic designed to make the guest look defensive no matter how they respond. Notice the phrasing? She's assuming the premise of her question is an absolute, undeniable fact and demanding he answer for it. This is how these panels operate. They don't want a discussion. They want a soundbite of their opponent stumbling or getting angry. But the absolute worst thing you can do when someone throws a wild accusation at you like this is to take the bait and start apologizing. You have to maintain your composure and recognize the game being played. The sheer level of projection here is wild, especially considering they are sitting on a national broadcast claiming that they are the ones being silenced. It's pure theatrical outrage, completely engineered for clicks and applause lines rather than any actual meaningful dialogue.
So Sonny, that was actually a very helpful intervention, because I think the story you're talking about is where, allegedly the administration is holding back the appointments of people based on skin color. I've seen the story.
I'm talking about a host of things. I'm talking about Black history getting erased from public spaces. Black voter districts are being dismantled. Black leaders are being sidelined from our ranks. Where do Americans of color fit in this vision? Because it doesn't seem like we fit.
Take a step back and look at the underlying assumption of that entire question. Where do Americans of color fit in this vision? It's a completely manufactured premise built entirely around the idea of victimization. They are desperately trying to force Vance into playing identity politics. But think about how limiting that mindset actually is. If you're constantly looking to a political administration, any administration, to define where you fit in society, you're handing over all of your power to Washington bureaucrats. True empowerment doesn't come from a politician giving you a designated slot in their grand vision. It comes from individual drive, capability, and merit. The panel wants to trap him into categorizing people by race, but the strongest possible move is to completely reject the framing. No one needs the government's permission to succeed. The fact that these hosts, who are sitting at the pinnacle of media success, are still pushing this narrative of sheer helplessness is honestly baffling. It just proves they are more interested in maintaining a narrative of division than celebrating actual empowerment. If you want to see more masterclasses in breaking down media traps just like this, hit that subscribe button right now. See you in the next one.